Cruise news time. Well, I excitedly told you a couple days ago about Norwegian Cruise Line's decision to allow passengers to explore the port when cruising resumes. Yeah, just forget all that. There's a new rule book out from the CDC that just crushed that idea. Wow, there's a lot popping off. The cruise life has gotten a lot more complicated, and some people aren't happy. Let's talk about it. Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to Lido Loca. I'm your host, Tony, here with the latest cruise news updates. Well, man, I feel like I'm full on Jack Kerouac. I've been on the road for over 10 days, and it's very weird. The cruise life is going through a lot of struggles and pains. We've had some ups, and maybe today we have some downs. 2 days ago, the CDC released new guidance. They stated boldly that we've given the cruise line everything that they need to start cruising again. If that's everything that we need to start cruising again, then we got some issues. All right, so in the show today, I'm going to talk about the rule book. The rule book for sailing all the way up until November. Yeah, and then I'm also going to talk about the lawsuit in Florida. There's some stuff going on with the lawsuit in Florida against the CDC. And then there's one cruise executive that seems to be annoyed at a lot of people. The CDC and Florida in particular. A lot to cover. Let's go. Let's start with the CDC's new rule book. Let's look at this image of the phases of the cruise restart. I told you in yesterday's show that the CDC, they've released new guidelines around test sailings, and there's two paths to resume cruising. There's a vaccinated path, there's a test sailing path. Well, in addition to that, both of those paths lead to restricted passenger sailing. The end game, as it were, is to allow cruise ships to sail with this restricted sailing under the conditional sail order. And so in addition to putting out rules for the test cruises, the cruise lines, they've also put out rules for restricted sailings. I will leave a link to this. There's a lot to read there, but it's a handbook. It's the guidelines for restricted sailing. Let me read you the purpose of this document. CDC's oversight and inspection of cruise ships during simulated and restricted passenger voyages will be based on this operations manual. The findings and or observation of these inspections will be shared with the cruise ship operator. Cruise ship operators are expected to align their health and safety protocols with any CDC findings and observations. Such findings and observations must also be incorporated into the cruise ship's operator's simulated voyage after action report, or as a condition of applying for and retaining permission to conduct restricted passenger voyages. That's the key there. So the CDC, they have a list of recommendations and requirements. They have an inspection process in place, and based on how those inspections go of the test sailings, the cruise ship will be allowed to make restricted passenger voyages, but the inspections will continue on those restricted passenger voyages, and the ability for the cruise line to continue to do restricted passenger voyages will be based on whether or not they follow the guidelines in this handbook. Operations manual. It just reminds me of my early, work career when I worked at Burger King, and we had these huge handbooks, operation manuals that told you how to do everything. Told you how to put the mayonnaise on a Whopper and how many swirls of ketchup that you got. That's essentially what this is for the CDC. There's a lot of rules in there. Again, I'll leave you the link. I would invite you to read it. But let's talk about a couple big ones that are likely to damper some people's excitement about cruising while the conditional sail order is in place. The first one is, it says very explicitly in there that there will be no exploring of the ports. Well, didn't NCL just say that you could explore the ports? Yes, they did. And then after they said that, this operations manual came out and said you can't do it. How about that? Another thing is, of course, doing away with all self-service. That's not that big of a surprise. Buffets will take on a different look going forward. But, things like the Coke machines on Royal Caribbean cruise ships, to get any 1,000 flavor of Cokes that you want, That's part of self-service. That'll go away. The ice cream machines on Carnival, self-service ice cream will go away. Probably there could be somebody there serving you in both of those locations, But for the most part, that's going away. Another big part of the operations manual is where you have to wear a mask and when you have to wear a mask, and it's always basically. It's basically always, unless you're eating or drinking, and you can't prolong the mask not on your face while you're eating and drinking. It's only for short periods of time. You may say, do I have to wear a mask in the swimming pool? No, you don't have to wear a mask in a swimming pool, but you do have to wear a mask if you're sunbathing in a chair next to the swimming pool. A lot of stuff. So it'll make your head explode. It's mind-numbing a little bit. These rules are in place for restricted passenger voyages until the CSO goes away, it's set to expire October the 31st, 2021. So you would assume that starting in November, these rules won't be in place unless new rules are put in place. So we've got, if cruises start in July, that's the 7th month, and we have to get all the way through the 10th month. So that's like 3 months of cruising under this operations manual, and it's really restrictive. Now, in response to the new guidance from the CDC, we've seen a couple things come out. I've got a statement from CLIA, which is somewhat positive, that I will read to you, and then we're going to talk about one of my favorite cruise executives, Frank Del Rio, who seems to be on the chip about a lot of things, and probably rightfully so. Before we get to those next stories, let me quickly invite you to subscribe to this YouTube channel. If you like staying up to date with everything that's going on in cruising, please consider subscribing with the notification bell on. That way you don't miss out on any of these episodes. Thanks in advance. Hey, look, we're up to 54% of you that are subscribed, so we're really making a dent into it. I would love to get it up to 60%. If you've never considered subscribing but you watch the show, it doesn't cost anything. It's really not a nuisance. You just get notified when I post a video on your YouTube app. So please consider subscribing. I'd love to get my number up to 60% subscribed. Thank you. And quickly, while we're just having a little housekeeping here, thanks everybody for the positive comments about Don. Talked to Don yesterday briefly. He saw all that and he's taken it in, and I know that he is grateful, as are we. Thank you so much. All right. So what did I say we would talk about? I would talk about the reaction to the CDC. I also have to talk about the Florida lawsuit, which is coming up on May the 12th. Florida suing the CDC. I'll talk about that when I talk about Florida in a minute. But let's quickly look at the statement that CLIA put out in response to the CDC. It's really interesting what you see in the leadership of the cruise industry. And it may be reflected kind of in like a cruise creator. I feel like, I've spent a lot of time being positive, looking for the hopeful notes in all of this news and bringing forth the hopeful notes. And then other people are looking at it at a different way, and they're pointing out some of the more negative things and bringing out the more negative notes. And I think both are valid and both are needed. I think it's good to have both sides of the coin. And even though I take some criticism for being the perpetually positive guy, I'm happy to play that role because that's how it aligns with the way I feel about life anyways. But you see it also in the way the leadership is responding to the CDC. Let me tell you what CLIA said. All right, this is CLIA's response to the CDC technical instructions issued on May the 5th, 2021. The technical instructions issued by the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, on May the 5th confirm that there is a lot of work to do in order to achieve the goal of sailing from U.S. ports this summer. We appreciate the CDC's express commitment to this goal and look forward to further discussions on the details of the instruction. Meanwhile, nearly 500,000 American jobs and livelihoods continue to hang in the balance. The cruise industry will continue to go above and beyond to meet the requirements of the CDC, building on the ongoing resumption of operations taking place in other parts of the world and the demonstrated success of the industry's protocols and public health measures. That was the statement by CLIA, a very even-keeled message. It says, look, we see what the CDC is doing. We appreciate it. We still want to work with them to figure out how we can get cruising going. However, there's still a lot of people out of work, and cruising is happening in other places. I like the message because it is respectful, but also, at the same time, just making a reminder out there that there's a lot at stake. So that's pretty good. And then on the heels of Norwegian Cruise Line's earnings call yesterday, Chairman Frank Del Rio, talking to CNBC, the Closing Bell program, he went at it a different way. He said, I seriously doubt we will be able to stand up a vessel out of a U.S. port in July. August is also in jeopardy, and it's all because of the disjointed guidelines from the CDC. What we received yesterday is anything but a clear path to restarting. And he doesn't stop there. He also says the unfair treatment that the industry has had to endure for over a year continues. It's got to stop. It's unfair, it's un-American, and certainly in contradiction with the goals set forth by President Joe Biden. So Frank Del Rio there on TV making a strong appeal that even though the cruise lines have been working with the CDC, the new guidance that came out, at least to Frank Del Rio, still not really that workable, still a little cumbersome to get through. And again, it obliterated the idea that Norwegian set forth earlier in the week that things like exploring the port would be viable when cruising restarted. When this guidance had to come out, if that was their mindset, and Norwegian's been really forward thinking on this, 100% vaccinated crew, 100% vaccinated passengers. They really put forth a lot of safety protocols, presented them to the CDC, and the CDC really not answering Norwegian Cruise Line's more safe proposal to cruising, and of course offering these guidelines, and you can tell Frank is frustrated, but Frank's frustration did not end with the CDC. He is also a little bit frustrated with the state of Florida. When asked about the new law that was put in place in Florida that restricts private businesses' ability to ask for proof of vaccine from their patrons, in this case to restrict cruise lines from asking for vaccine proof from their passengers, Frank said this: "At the end of the day, cruise ships have motors, propellers, and rudders, and God forbid we can't operate in the state of Florida for whatever reason. Then there are other states that we do operate from. And we can operate from the Caribbean for a ship that otherwise would have gone to Florida." He goes on to say, and I'm paraphrasing this part, that the Florida thing probably is going to be a conversation about federal law versus state law and whether Florida actually can restrict the cruise lines from asking. But he says very plainly he's not a lawyer. But at the end of the day, the clear message there is that if he can't make cruising happen in Florida because of restrictive rules in Florida, then he'll go cruise somewhere else. How about that? And the ironic part is, while Frank is talking about leaving Florida because of restrictions against cruising, Florida continues to fight the CDC over cruising. Of course, they filed a lawsuit against the CDC. They're waiting for their day in court about an injunction to immediately stop the imposition of the conditional sail order. That goes to the court on May the 12th. And also, that lawsuit has been joined, of course, by Alaska. And then the latest breaking news is Texas has also joined that lawsuit. So now in the federal court in Tampa, you've got Florida, Alaska, and Texas all suing the CDC for the restart of cruising. We've got some friends of the show that have been sending the legal documents that have been submitted to the court there. I just saw the CDC, they sent like a 147-page response to the injunction. I haven't read all 147 pages. I've read about 20 pages of it. And really, they're making their argument like, does Florida even have the right to sue us? That's one of the arguments. And then the second big argument is like, yo, it's a pandemic. We're in charge of safety during a pandemic. Are you really suing us? So it's that's me paraphrasing. I'm not a lawyer either, but that's my rudimentary reading of the first 20 pages of 147 pages. So it is heating up over that court case. Man, there's so many people involved in the cruise restart right now. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. Taking all of this news in while on the road, I can just say I'm excited that I'm cruising from Nassau on June the 11th. And maybe Europe will open up and we can fly there. Cruising is coming back. I do believe we'll see cruising out of the U.S. in some form this summer. But holy moly, that road is rocky. Let me throw the question over to you. What do you think about all of this? Have you seen that operations manual? Anything jump out that's... It's pretty restrictive. Would you cruise like that, I guess is the question. Happy Friday. Let's just have some sort of conversation. I'm doing my best to get through the comments on the road, but I appreciate all of the good conversation down in the comments. Keep it going. Thank you so much for watching the show today. Look, you got to hit the like button or I'm sending an encyclopedia salesman to your house to try to sell you Volume Z. Hit that like button. Watch this video that YouTube recommends. This is Tony for Lido Loca, and until the next time, we'll see you on the Lido. Bye.